and welcome to this tutorial on bottle labels in BrewTrax. The bottle labels module of BrewTrax allows you to design a label that you can print out onto standard A4 paper or even self-adhesive labels. Each label can be custom designed to include many aspects of the brew. You can even add an individual bottle number so that you can keep track of each and every bottle that you produce. To get going, let me just quickly show you around the bottle labels module within the software. To access the bottle labels module, simply click on the bottle labels icon on the main toolbar. Once the module is opened, you'll see that this new screen is divided into two main sections, the toolbar on the left, and the main part of the screen, which is taken up with a grid of existing bottle labels and templates. By the way, if you'd like to view a larger thumbnails of the available labels in BrewTrax, then simply click on Bottle Label Browser at the top. It is possible to adjust just how large the thumbnails are by adjusting the slider at the bottom. Slide to the left to make them smaller, slide to the right to make them larger. Okay, back to the grid listing. In this view, along with the thumbnail, you can also see other information about each label, such as the template used to create it, but more on that in a second. The size, this by the way is shown in pixels, the rating you have given each label, and the average AquaLive rating given by other users of BrewTrax. You can also see if it's a favourite label, or a label that you have created yourself. Lastly, you can see if the label is made from a template, and if it is set to synchronize to the internet to allow other users to download it. So, templates. A template is quite simply a blank label that has been set up to print out to a particular size. Initially, BrewTrax comes with a selection of Aquacom labels designed to match common wine bottle label sizes, as well as a sample of an Avery label for printing out onto self-adhesive labels. So, when you want to create a label, instead of having to fiddle around adjusting the size of the label and its spacing and printing out lots of test samples, you can simply create a new label from a template. Looking at the list, you'll see that the labels in BrewTrax are grouped by the template that was used to create them. This makes it easy to find the label that you want to print out. So, we want to create a new label. Let's assume we have made some wine that is going to be drunk at a wedding anniversary party. We've created a nice white wine, and now that we've bottled it, we want to make a really nice label for the bottles that reflects the occasion. We want to have a tool rather than a wide label for this wine, so we'll use the Aquacom tool template to start us off. Find the Aquacom tool wine label under Label Templates. Click on it to highlight it, and then in the toolbar on the left, click Duplicate. If you now scroll down to the section Aquacom Tool Wine, you will see a new label there called New Label. This is our duplicated label that we will work with. So the first thing to do is to rename it so we know what it is. Click in the name column for that label and you'll see that you can now type in that cell and call it whatever you want. For now, let's call it Wedding Anniversary. Now we are going to actually start creating the label itself. With the label still highlighted, click on Edit Label on the left hand toolbar. Don't worry if your label seems to have disappeared. BrewTrax has simply reordered the list alphabetically, so scroll down until you find it and then click to highlight before clicking Edit Label. As you can see, a new window has opened to allow us to edit our new label. At first, it can seem a bit daunting with all the various areas, so let me go through them with you now. The screen is broken up into 5 sections. Across the top, we have the main toolbar. This gives us tools to save, or to change font, etc. of a selected item. On the left, we have the toolbox. The toolbox gives us all of the various items that we'll make our label with, such as pictures, shapes, text, etc. Over on the right, at the top, you'll see a list of data fields that relate to all of the various bits of information held in BrewTrax about your brew. Underneath that is a properties area. Depending on what is selected in the main part of the screen, this will update to reflect the properties for that item. So for a text item, it will have items such as colour, font, size, etc. So that just leaves the main area of the screen. This is the main working area and represents our label. The label that we're working with at the moment is designed to print out 4 times onto an A4 sheet of paper. What we have here is a representation of that A4 piece of paper. At the top we have the top margin. On the left margin. On the right margin. At the bottom margin. Through the centre we have a small area which divides the left and the right labels. The greyed out area here is where the second label will print, so we can't place any items here. This just leaves the area here, which is the actual label that we're going to work with. Anything we place on this area will be printed out for each bottle. Basically, anything you want in your label, place it here. For our label, we've decided that we're going to go with a retro feel label. The first thing we're going to do is to create some angled rectangles on our label. We do this, we start by adding a shape to the label. Click on the shape tool and click in the label. By default, we can see that an ellipse has been created. We want to change that to a rectangle, so with the shape still selected, click on the small arrow at the top right to get to the properties. Now change the shape to rectangle. While we're here, we also want to make sure that stretch is ticked, and we'll change the angle to say 13. The line width to 0, and the fill colour to a nice light yellow. We want to make the shape about 85 pixels high, which we can do by either dragging these small handles until we have exactly the size that we want, or adjust it in the properties window here. We also want to stretch it so that it goes all the way across the label. This is easier done with the handles. Now let's create a second shape and also make it a rectangle and set the colour, etc. We can do that quickly by selecting the first one that we've just created, right click it, copy, then right click on the label and paste. Now we can go to the properties for that second shape and set the angle back to 0. We also want to set the height of this item to about 63. We'll now move this second shape right to the very top of the label. As we can now move the first one up, you'll see there becomes a point where the two look like they become one item. It forms a rather interesting shape. Let's now duplicate both of those shapes and move them to the bottom. The angled shape wants to have a top location, or Y location, of about 361 in this location. Now we want to add the photo for the centre of the label, so click on Picture Box and then click anywhere within our label. A picture box is simply a placeholder item that can hold any picture or photo that we choose. Click in the small arrow at the top to bring up the properties for this picture box. Go to Image and click the ellipsis. Find the photo that you want to use. In this case we're using an old photo of the happy couple from their wedding day itself, and click Open. We now see that if you resize the picture box, you can see that the photo is there. However, bits of it are chopped off. We can prevent this from happening by changing the sizing mode. To do this, once again click in the small arrow at the top, but this time go to Sizing. From the drop down list, select Zoom. Now we can see all of the photo, and as we resize, the photo simply resizes too. For now, let's set its height to 215. Now I'm going to position the photo centrally within the label. So to start, let's click on the central vertically button in the toolbar. I'll now widen the picture box until it reaches both sides so that we know it is completely central. To personalise the label a bit, let's add some text across the top. Double click on the label in the toolbar. A new label item will appear. Double click on this new label item and we'll add the text. We'll add the happy couple. In the properties, we can change the font and the font size. Let's use Candara. Let's make it bold and size 26. Okay. Now let's resize it in order to make it visible. We'll also change the angle to 9. This allows the text to flow more evenly across the shape that we've created in the background. Slight alteration to its location to make sure it fits exactly how we want it to. Also, change the text alignment to middle. This helps to centralise the text within the boundaries. There. Now, let's duplicate that item. Simply highlight, right click, copy, right click, paste. Let's move this item to the top right. Double click to change the text, and we'll type in there 40 years. Again, resize until we're happy exactly where the text is. There. This label will look a lot better if it has a darker background. Let's go the whole way and use black. We can adjust this by clicking not on any of the items we have added to the label, but on the background for the label itself. There is a gap here, so a left click and over to properties. Set background colour from transparent to black. Notice how all the items have now taken on black as their background colour. We have a few issues though. Firstly, the text we've just added at the top now has a black background and a black foreground, so we can't see what it says. Plus, there are some white gaps through the centre of the label, and also some of the shapes aren't looking quite right. That concludes part 1 of this tutorial video on the bottle labels module in BrewTrax. Join us in part 2 where we'll show you how we change the background colour, add data fields to the label, and then show you how to add your new label to a particular brew ready for printing out.